Today I feel like talking about a topic that I've thought a lot about throughout my entire life, as far as I can remember at least. And the reason that I've thought about this specific topic more than any other is because I suffered so much through that. And it caused me to feel very isolated, alienated, different from most people in my life until I ended up just not interacting with anyone, staying in my room uh, as much as possible because it used to bother me so much how every single time when I feel like going outside, whether alone or with my friends, I used to feel quite judgmental from almost anyone who doesn't dress up the same way that I do, doesn't think like me mostly, um, who's not reasonable, who's not logical, and it caused me a lot of suffering. I was forced to cut off a lot of people in my life, and a lot of them cut me off because of how toxic I became to them, constantly criticizing, judging, analyzing, questioning their behaviors and their thoughts. And to be fair, I wasn't doing that in the nicest way. I usually got triggered and had a very emotional reaction. Quite ironic for someone who used to perceive himself as very reasonable and logical. He was acting mostly out of emotion. Um, you see, the thing about logic is that you can meet someone who feels quite logical, and you can meet another who seems to be quite illogical, unreasonable, and what's interesting is that the one that you perceive as logical can be perceived as illogical by someone else, and the one that you perceive as illogical can be perceived as logical to another person. And that was my experience. That was the point that just made me sit, take a step back, and just wonder, because I remember a day. Wasn't the only day, but this one, I don't know. This one just always comes to mind. The first thing, perhaps because it had a big impact on me. And during the day, I was interacting with a person online, and I was talking to him about all sorts of things, and I remember him saying that he looks up to me, and he loves the way I think, and how smart I am, how reasonable, how wise. He perceived me as enlightened, awake, and it felt great to get this validation, as I lacked it for the majority of my life. Um, I was like, finally, someone sees me as I am. Someone appreciates and values me. And it made my day up until at night. I had an clashing with my mother, and she the things that I was saying to her, just she hated it a lot, and I was in a way making her think about something that she never thought about before, and she didn't think about before because she doesn't get near these topics because it's wrong to think about such things. And so when I shared my thoughts with her and I tried to get her to think about them and consider them, she found them to be totally unreasonable and illogical, wrong. And I remember how she immediately said that, asked me rhetorically, "Are you retarded? You must be retarded." And I was hurt a lot because I've been compared by my parents and other people, of course, but first and foremost by my parents, as I grew up quite a lot, to other people. Why aren't you like this? I've had this trauma, you could say, that I'm not good enough, which caused a lot of insecurities and therefore fears. And that night wasn't the first night, nor the last, to be honest, but she touched that deep wound of mine, and I felt highly and deeply disrespected, unappreciated, unseen, offended. Um, I don't hate her. I did hate her quite a lot that night, but I don't feel this way towards her anymore, and I got to a point that I find it quite reasonable and logical that she didn't find me quite reasonable and logical. Um, that night, as I was very hurt, I was in my room and I was feeling this pain in my chest. Um, it's like I got stabbed. It wasn't just merely emotionally upsetting, it turned also in a physical pain. Um, and after I calmed down a bit, um, suddenly I found myself wondering. I was like, why am I so caught up with what my mother said and forgetting totally about earlier today, just 5 to 6 hours ago, when that guy told me that he looks up to me. And this is the way that most people cope with negative emotions and the so-called haters, um, fuck haters. I used to do that too, and out of habit, I found myself just as soon as I calmed down a bit, looking at the positive side of the story. Okay, at least this guy, he saw me for what I am. He validated me, appreciated me, valued me. I looked at the half full part of the cup. But you see, um, at this point in my life, I don't do that anymore because the cup is both half filled and half empty. It's not one or the other. It's both, and that's what hit me that night. Is that After I found my attention switching to the positive thing that happened earlier that day, I just was still in the midst of the hurt that I was just caused 30 minutes ago through my mother. So it was quite challenging for me to buy into, sorry, and focus on the half full side of the cup. Um, and then I was forced, you could say, to think like this guy perceived me as enlightened, and this woman perceived me as retarded. So, what does that make me? And if you thought about this for a bit, I'm pretty sure most of us have, you would come to the conclusion that you are what you think of yourself. And there is truth in that, I agree, but I still find that to be some sort of wishful thinking. It is indeed practical and truthful, but it gives this notion of coping still. It's like trying to shift my attention towards the side that just pleases me, and forgetting about the one that caused me discomfort. Um, Again, it goes back to the whole notion of being biased. That because it's much better to think of myself as enlightened, as good. So then I will forget about what my mother said and or any other person in that matter, and focus on those who valued me. And as much as this works a lot, I just couldn't get myself to live that way. And I just found myself overwhelmed, not being able to determine which one am I. Am I enlightened? Or am I crazy and stupid? And I went on a walk, and with no clear destination, but at some point I found myself standing in front of some tree in the neighborhood. And as I cluelessly looked at it, not really sure what I'm looking at or what I'm expecting to happen, a question came to my mind, and it was a simple comparison. Which is better, a mango tree or an apple tree? And the answer was quite obvious, that it depends on what you want. If you want apples, then an apple tree is definitely better, and if you want mangoes, then a mango tree is definitely better. And then I realized that there is no inherent good or bad traits. That a mango tree is a mango tree, and an apple tree is an apple tree. And that's when it became obvious to me that I am just me and you just are, and they are just them. And everything just is. There is no good and bad. There is no clear cut between someone who is enlightened and someone who is crazy. It depends on who's looking, who's listening. Some of you would be listening to me right now and be nodding their heads and feeling the truth and the reality and the wisdom and whatnot in their hearts, their minds. They would be touched and inspired by what I'm saying. But others would be listening to the same recording and thinking that I'm a nutcase. I'm someone who just trying to twist things around to make sense out of them, or in living in falsehood and delusions. And this is why it's foolish to try to please everyone, because you can't. You see, like let's assume that you don't like mangoes. You just hate the smell and you hate the taste. You hate how it looks. It's not personal. It's not really about the mangoes, because I love mangoes. Like honestly, I just love them. Yet you can taste the same mango that I'm tasting and you can just throw up. And most people would just be like, I can't make everyone like me, so I will surround myself with those that do like me. And it is indeed good to do that. But ultimately it depends on what kind of path or journey you want to embark. I personally, I love the comfort just like anyone else. Um, I have this, not much of a gamer, but I have this gaming chair because it's comfortable. I love the comfort as well, but you could say it's in my blood not to dwell and surround myself with comfort. Um, I don't know why exactly, honestly. There are a lot of reasons to that, but I just I don't want to surround myself with people that love me, with just people that love me and value me. I wanna also I wanna get to a point. This is what I thought to myself that night. I wanna get to a point where I can hang out and be in the company of anyone, whether they love me or they hate me, whatever way they think of me, and enjoy their company regardless. To just love them regardless of our differences. I didn't want to follow the cliche fuck the haters, because you see that in itself is just so ironic because it turns you into one. You are hating on the haters. It's just like killing a murderer or killing a killer. You didn't do anything different. You still killed. You still hated. It's like I don't want any toxic people in my life. Get the fuck out of my life. But that in itself is a toxic negative emotion towards those who cause or contribute into making you feel negative things, toxic things. You're really no different than them. Yes, you may be treating so many other people much better than they treated you, but you hating those who hate you, it's really one of the same thing. It's just because they are labeled as toxic people or haters, that doesn't give you a reason to hate them, because it just makes you a hater. It just makes you a toxic person. And I just didn't want to do that, as much as it's the easiest thing to do. To just ignore the haters, just to live in my own bubble and space, surrounded by those who love me. Positive vibes only. I mean, positivity is great, but it's just not the thing I want to keep on constantly pursuing. I desire something beyond that. I desire mastery of life. And when I say mastery of life, I say mastery of the mind, of the heart, all of it. This is what I desire. I desire loving a comfortable chair like this as much as sitting on a rock. I desire loving them both equally. I don't know why exactly I desire that. I don't know why exactly I want to walk this path of mastery, but I just do. And at that night, I realized that it was very hard to admit, but I am both enlightened and retarded. I am both smart and stupid. I am both good and bad. I cannot be one or the other. Cannot separate one from the other. By doing good to someone, I'm doing bad to someone else. And there is no other way around it. You, whether intentionally or unintentionally, as you go throughout your life, you will intentionally and unintentionally benefit and harm everything and everyone around you. It's an example of that would be by just simply having your mind busy with some stuff and you decide to go on a walk to get some fresh air. And as you're walking in a park surrounded by trees and flowers and the sunlight and the wind, very beautiful weather, you're just zoning out in your own mind space, thinking about your stuff, self-centered, not really thinking about or noticing anything else. As you're walking, you very likely have stepped on a roach and just flattened it down, dead. And that roach might have been on its way to bring some food for its kids. And you killed it. And you didn't even notice that you did. And a roach is just as alive as you are. It is as conscious as you are, has good and bad days, and you just killed it without even noticing that you did. And you kept on walking, still thinking about whatever stuff that are busy in your mind. But there is some story left behind, and it's the story of that roach and its kids. And the kids are now hungry and starving, and you caused them a lot of harm. Yet at the same time, that roach, by you killing it unintentionally, you unintentionally caused so much good. Because there are so many ants that are just gonna feed on it. And you just gave him a big meal for the day to eat and have leftovers to save. Thanks to you. And you just kept going without even noticing that you did any of this or you caused any of that. See, just as sad the story of the roach might be, and as good the story of the roach might be, depending on which side you're on, there is just something utterly beautiful about both sides of the story. And it's called creation. And it happens through each and every one of us and every single thing that exists. They all are participating into creation, constant, never-ending creation. The cosmic dance. It's the biggest dance group you can imagine. and we're all participating in it. We're all dancing in it. You have to be the hero and the villain at the same time to everyone. And that's what I realized that night. I am both enlightened and ignorant. I don't have a specific way or a specific image to be perceived by. It depends on who's looking. And whoever is looking and whatever they see, what they see is true. Whether what they're seeing is what I'm seeing when I look at myself or not, it still is true. I don't have a specific image. And I don't even look the same. I'm not the same guy who started this video. Neither are you. You feel like you are, but you're not. And this is something that happened with the Buddha, Gautama Siddhartha. One day he was sitting, just people are gathering around him, learning from him and whatnot. And then a very angry man showed up in the circle. He started yelling at the Buddha, telling him that he ruined the minds of these people. He made them very lazy, not productive. And he ended up spitting on his face. And then he left. Then the next day, the guy showed up again. And he came into the same circle, coming towards the Buddha, feeling very sorry and sad. And then he approached the Buddha, apologizing about what he did yesterday. And that he wasn't in his right mind, blah blah. And he hoped that the Buddha can forgive him for what he did. And then the Buddha looked at him and said, I'm sorry, I cannot forgive you. Everybody was so shocked because the Buddha, the big guy, the enlightened one, cannot forgive. And then he continued on saying, I cannot forgive you because there is nothing to forgive. If there is nothing if there is nothing to blame for, there is nothing to forgive, he continued on saying that you are not the same guy who spat on my face, yesterday. Neither am I the same person that you spit on his face. It's like a friend of mine comes in and does something to me and then he leaves. Another friend comes in apologizing for what that friend did. I'm not even mad at you. I'm not even the same person who was attacked and hurt. This whole notion that you are the same person throughout your entire life is as illusory as the red line on the barber pole. It seems to be going up and down, but it really isn't. It's just rotating. It's just like the spring doesn't become the summer. The spring happens and then the summer happens. And so am I, so are you. Not the same person. There is no need to hold any grudges. And if anything, the very fact that someone may perceive you or me as logical or illogical, just due to one thing, And in order to know that one thing, you have to understand what is logic really. And logic is the fundamental structure to thought. And it's like two thoughts represented by like two dots, and logic is basically the connection between them. But for yourself, you may seem like, oh, I became more logical than before. And it's really all about the connection in between these thoughts getting stronger and stronger. But there is also another thing, and it has to go about the nature of thoughts themselves. What are thoughts? And thoughts are simply the results of all the data and information that you've gathered up until this point. Added to that, all the experiences that you've experienced up until this point. Yet, it's very obvious to most of us, if not all, that no one can know it all. Because even if I were to read every book and know every piece of information that exists on this planet right now, and I were to stand up and say, finally, I have it all, I know it all, while I'm just saying this sentence, new information came up. And this is why you cannot have your logic and your reason, your ability to reason, to be perfect. Indeed, you can uh, become more logical. Well, it will still depend on who you're talking to, but the richer your thoughts are, the more information, useful information, I shall say, you gather and accumulate. And the more experiences you experience, the richer your thoughts are, and the more that your ability to reason and to logic and to connect, it's just another word to say logic or reason, it's just to connect the dots together to form a bigger picture. uh, you will keep getting better at it, and you will have your perspective become wider and more inclusive. But you can't really uh, guarantee that you can be perceived as logical, reasonable, good, whatever names, whatever good attributes. You cannot be perceived in this way by everyone, because for like, if by far as I'm speaking and the things that I might still say, if you've nodded at least once and you felt this like, yes, that makes sense. Like, what really happens when you feel like something makes sense is that I, for example, said this much, and your content, all the information experiences are this much, and then it makes sense. The dots connect together. But for example, if I said something, this is also how I know that the person that I'm interacting with, how I know that they have a higher understanding than me. I know that by once I feel that the person that I'm talking to is not making any sense. That's how I know that they are beyond me. Because it's just like they're saying this much, and my content is this much. So then some of their words will make sense, but the rest, they won't. So then I'll be like, and I get this comment a lot from other people. Some of what you say is really good and really true, but the other stuff not so much. They're not making sense, but that doesn't mean that they're not right, or they're not true, or they're wrong. They're just not clicking. They don't have any foundation or basis in your being to connect with. So if anything that I'm saying made sense to you, that's because it had some basis. And if I said something that didn't make any sense, um, it's because it's not connecting well. Maybe I didn't explain it well either. Who knows? The next thing that I want to talk about is astrology. See, a lot of people believe in astrology, and a lot of people don't. And there are some that just don't care. And I personally, I'm not an expert. I barely know anything about astrology. But I know something for sure that there is no such thing as something entirely false. That everything has truth in it. Even if the truth may be hidden or distorted, the truth must be there. And I find it um, unreasonable, illogical, to just think that the sun, the moon, the planets, they don't affect us. When the sun literally affects us every single morning, it brings us heat, it does all sorts of things to our bodies, our state of being, and the moon affects all the water on the planet. And we are made of a big chunk of water, and this is part of who you are, water. So it definitely makes sense that whatever cycles and whatever impacts, definitely there is truth in that. The moon does affect me, the sun affects me. I don't know about the other planets because again, I'm not an expert, but there's something that I find like as if it may seem like I'm entirely siding with those who believe in astrology. There is still something that I just don't understand, because it's not just that there is just the sun and those planets and that moon and the other moons around the planets in our solar system. There are so many other galaxies that have so many suns. Some the same size, some smaller, some way bigger than our sun. And a lot of planets, and a lot of moons, and a lot of like asteroids and whatnot, rocks. All of these things are within the environment. It's just a bigger environment, not one that is limited to the planet. A bigger one that is galactic environment, and they definitely also have an effect on us, and of course on everything else. But we care the most on ourselves, right? So if I were to really dig into astrology, I just find it I find it impossible to really be aware of astrology, because then I would have to take every single object in the entire universe into consideration, because all of them are affecting me, not just one. Um, and for me to just limit it to the solar system, that's really a tiny portion of the big picture. And it's really like same thing goes like to like death, you know. uh, what would happen to me when I die? And then you come to the idea of the afterlife and the past lives, depending on what you believe in. And like my perspective on this, my take on that is a bit complicated. It's not yes or no. It's more of just questioning the structure of thought in itself. Because like if you say what will happen to me when I die, what do you mean by I exactly? Who are you? Because you see, if you are uh, the entire universe in itself, then the question is irrelevant. You were never born and you will never die. Not the you, the body, or the mind, the brain, because these will. They will go back to where they came from, the planet. They're gonna get recycled. But that's not who you are. You see, if even if you identify with this, like most people, and you really feel like this is you, this is made out of cells, cells made out of atoms and subatomic particles, and you can keep on zooming in, but fundamentally speaking, everything, this and everything else, is made out of energy. And energy can change forms, but can never be created nor destroyed. So, this is literally the answer to the question what would happen when I die. It again goes back who you think you are. If you think you're the body, then this body will just transform into something else. And then you get the idea of past lives and afterlives. What am I gonna be next? You you're already all of it. You're already the one listening to me and me talking to you at the same time. But even if you think in afterlives, then that by that very notion of being energy, and energy can change forms, so then you're gonna become something else. So this is the afterlife. You are already experiencing the afterlife right now. This is how it feels like. This is how it looks like. Nothing too weird. It just feels normal. It just feels like yourself. You're still experiencing the same thing that you experienced since you were born. You're experiencing being me. You are already living the afterlife. But if there's an afterlife, then that implies that there is before life or past lives. And I sort of like have an issue with that notion because there's a lot of misconceptions in it and things that are not really thought through and not really looked into carefully. It brings, for example, like the concept of karma, and there's a huge, huge misconception about karma, that it's about punishment and rewards. So I'm experiencing, I don't know, getting robbed in this lifetime because I did this thing in past lifetimes, or that I have this trauma, or I'm experiencing these fears or these challenges, and that's because of karmic things I've been carrying around from past lives. And again, just like astrology, I'm not throwing this away. I can't do that. But my issue is that with those who really get so caught up with astrology and they cannot really fathom and grasp all of the impact of every single every single body in space that has on them. So is the past lives. You see, there are people who are experts on past lives, and you can go to them and they can explain to you, like, you were born as, for example, some woman, and you experienced rape, and this is why you're having these sexual traumas in these lives, in this life. But the interesting thing that I noticed is that, again, I'm not devalidating what they say, but the interesting thing is that what they always say is that in past lives, when they just mention this, they always mean past lives as human. But what about the lives even that you've lived as an ant? How about that? Where is that into your picture, into your map? Where does it fit? Why no one is talking about that? What about when you were a giraffe? All of the experiences and the trauma that an ant goes through, the challenges, the things that it might have traumatized it and wounded deeply. Where's that into your map? Just the same thing as when it comes to astrology. Where is the, the, the billions and billions and billions of the other planets into the map? In your astrology chart. Where's the impact? Because you can't. And the same goes to those who are experts when it comes to mapping out past lives. Where are the past lives when I was an ant? The reason you don't busy yourself with think about that, because you don't know what is it like to be an ant. You don't even remember what is it like to be an ant. Do you see? You can't grasp it. And this is not in a depressive way that oh no, I can't grasp it, and no, the mind, the ego, the conscious mind definitely hates this. It wants to be certain. It hates uncertainty. But this is really desperate. So many desperate attempts to grasp and understand existence. It's just to make sense of it. It's just as desperate as trying to drink the ocean with a fork, or to collect water with a net. You're gonna get some, definitely. But is that everything? Is that the whole picture? No. So it may seem like this, but then with more data coming in, more information, more experiences, it can turn into something entirely different. So what if the traumas that I'm experiencing right now, and the fears, and what if those things are coming from lives that I used to be a horse and I was getting beaten up? How would I know? And how would I even interpret and comprehend that? Can't. So the easiest thing to do is to just put it all on just past human lives. And indeed, past human lives, you can carry stuff with you. But these are not the whole story. This is not the whole story. The story is entirely, almost entirely, I should say, missing. And they believe that, oh, karma is because I did these things and therefore I'm getting punished for them, or therefore I'm getting rewarded for them. No, no. There is no such thing as punishment and reward to begin with. This is super childish. This is cool stuff. The very fact that you call something or label something as a punishment or as a reward is due to your own selfishness. So fucking selfish. You're really just splitting things into good and bad. Based on what? What's good for you can be bad for something else, and vice versa. Everything is both good and bad, which makes it neither. A mango tree is good and bad depending on who is standing in front of it, but that also makes it that it's neither good nor bad. It just is. And karma literally means just action. It doesn't mean any of these things. It just means action. If I do this, this is karma. And for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. There are consequences, results, not good and bad. Aside from your personal agenda and selfishness, to see things as they are with honesty, just results, implications, impact, whether you like them or not, whether they are in your benefit or not. It's not about you, it's not personal. It just is. I took a sip, I don't feel like my throat is dry anymore. But it's also making me feel like lighting up another cigarette. And the list goes on. Which connects really well with the whole notion of purpose. Finding my life purpose, my calling. See, purpose by definition, it means impact. So, what you're trying to do is that you're trying to find your impact on the world, the message. And there are two types of purpose. And the first one is one that you cannot fathom and grasp. It's the cosmic, universal purpose, impact. And it has been going on way before you were born. There are the impacts and the causations for you to exist have been going on since the beginning of time, just for you to happen. And the implications and the causes, consequences, the karma of the fact that you did happen is gonna last on forever. It will never end. So it would be utterly ignorant and foolish of me to think that I was born so that 26 years after I sit here and record these things. This is my purpose. This is my calling. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm loving this. I have been posting daily for the last 3 to 4 days, but not because I have to, just because I felt like it. So I'm enjoying it. But do I really see myself as like Oh, I'm an influencer? Well, yes, right now I'm influencing a few people, sure. Maybe one day this video will blow up on its own, since I'm not really sitting and promoting, uh, and then it would impact so many more people. I wouldn't even say good or bad, but cool. But I'm not sitting here fulfilling my purpose in life. Because if it's my purpose in life, then I'm gonna make a bunch of videos, say all what I have to say, what I want to say, what I need to say, and then kill myself. Or then I will just die. Because I'm done. I've done what I came here for. Yet a lot of people believe that. They really, really believe that they exist for a specific thing to do. No. This is just sad. This is very sad to hear, because you're really undermining the value of your existence, the impact of it. Every single thing you will do within this life is gonna last forever. Just the very fact that you exist. Just you should live. Just like you walk in a park. Like you poop. Pooping is you fulfilling your purpose. Your impact on the world. On the entire existence. By just pooping. In my previous video I briefly mentioned how that poop can feed so many creatures. I'm here to serve my country. Yeah? See, like, I'm not into politics. I don't find it worthy of my time, but because as much as there is that type of purpose that I just talked about, there is also the conscious purpose. And these are the things that you intentionally decide to do. The decisions, the choices that you make. I intentionally decided to record this. This is one of my purposes. It's just that I consciously, with awareness, did it. But that's not the only thing that I'm doing right now. It may seem like it. Yeah, I'm just sitting here recording and talking about this, but I'm also smoking a cigarette. And then what could possibly happen through that? And for example, the smoke can go out, hypothetically speaking, and this is nothing compared to what can actually happen. And the smoke goes out, and say that there is a stray cat outside, and then the smoke bothers it and makes it just go away, go to some other place. And as it's going away, it gets to some other place where there is a mother that gave birth to some kittens, and she's just feeding them. And then that cat comes in, and then she feels very threatened and worried about her children. And then they fight, they make a lot of noise, and they wake up some neighbor who was trying to sleep, and then he wakes up feeling cranky, and then he has a fight with his wife. And then this one just pushes things over the edge because things have been piled up for so long, and then they get a divorce, and then the children traumatized, and so on it goes, because I'm smoking a cigarette. So even the conscious purpose, I cannot even tell the impact. I don't know what kind of impact my words right now will have on you. Not in immediately, not in the next 5 years. I don't know. Neither do you. Whether you Whether the things that I'm saying are resonating with you or not, whether you like it or not, they have an impact. And this is why, for example, Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam, the Muslims, um, he said one of his teachings was إن المرء على دين خليله, which means that literally translated, uh, one is on the religion of one's company, one's friend. And people take it quite literally, right? And in terms of like religion, and I'm talking like Arabs, um, that if I, for example, hang out with a Christian and they will impact me, and then I will start doing some Christian behaviors, and there's definitely truth in that. Aside from the fact that it's labeled as like Christian bad, so stay away, stick with the Muslims like you. Again, the the haters, fuck the haters, positive vibes only. Fuck the Christians, I'm gonna stick with the Muslims. Um, but I will also impact the Christian. In that even hypothetical, simple example, I will also impact the Christian, and the Christian maybe do show some Muslim behaviors. You see, but really, this teaching, in my eyes, it goes to so much more depth than that, and it goes back to the law of physics that every action has an opposite and equal reaction. And it's not just about religions, it's something as simple as the music that you're hearing right now. This is the environment affecting the individual. But I'm also affecting the environment because I affected the environment, which is my phone playing this song, and it shows. I pressed on it. I impacted the environment, the phone, and then the environment impacted me by setting me in this mode, and therefore I will impact the environment again by having this talk with you. So this teaching and this rule, uh, it's it's one of the fundamental uh, structures to our existence, and that everything is impacting the other, but you can't really get a grip of it and be like, ah, yeah. So if I spoke in this way, you will not perceive me as stupid. You will not perceive me as perhaps you will perceive me as smart, but not arrogant. No, some of you will see me as, summarize it, good. Some of you will see me as bad. And maybe later on, those who perceive me as good will start perceiving me as bad. And those who perceive me as bad will start perceiving me as good. It goes back to this story of a man who had a farm, and he had a bunch of horses. And one day, one of those horses ran away. And then the neighbors showed up, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is bad news. We're so sorry for that." And then he said, "Maybe. Maybe it's bad news. I don't know." And then the next day, that horse came back, bringing with it another wild horse. So then the neighbors knew about this, and they were like, "This is amazing. This barely happens. This is great news." Again, he said, "Maybe." In the same day, his son was in the farm taking care of the horses, and then he went near the wild horse to wash it and clean it, and then the wild horse just attacked his son and broke his leg. And then when the neighbors knew about this, they were like, "This is horrible. This horse, like, you should get rid of it. This is really bad." Again, he said maybe, and not in a psychopathic, not feeling any empathy or compassion towards his son, but just generally, aside from the things he's feeling, he does not know if it's good or bad. And then the following day or two after, the military came by his place to collect those in their youth and to participate in the war. volunteer, and then when they found that his son's leg is broken, they let him be again. Maybe. See, it's good. Oh, my son is not in the war now, and now he's gonna live longer. That's good. It's neither good or bad. It just is. And so is the things that you're hearing from me. You're might be agreeing, might be disagreeing, and whether you agree, you just can't help but agreeing. It just resonates with you. And if you disagree, you can't help but disagree. It just doesn't resonate with you. It just doesn't click. And it's not relevant, really. It's just really what it boils down to. Something being relevant or not. Uh, so, I don't know, you know? I don't know. And it's such a beautiful realization. It's definitely, it can't even be just beautiful on its own, because when I first started this path, consciously started it at least, um, the I don't knows were causing me a lot of suffering, a lot of confusion, uncertainty, and so forth. And my ego, the mind, myself, basically, hated it because it's just unknown and I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on. And this is why I started this whole thing, is to know. And then I came to a point that I know that I do not know. And now it hits entirely the opposite. It started off with being bad, and it ended up with being really good. It started off with me trying to being in the sea, for example, or in the ocean, trying to hold on to the water so that I don't fall down, which caused me to suffer a lot. But then, after I learned swimming, I got to a point that I just don't even need to swim. I can just, and the water will carry me, and I'll just flow with it. And so is this I don't know. What kind of impact I'm gonna have on the world? I don't know. And I don't need to know. Because I'm simply living a value based life rather than a goal based one. And I think this is good. Or maybe bad. Depends, right? Um, a value based one in the sense of like, if I, for example, am manufacturing clothes just so that I make the money, then the means are gonna be uh, rushed and not done properly because they don't matter to me. What matters to me is the end result, the money. And I'm not saying that uh, in the sense of like money's bad. No, no, it's not bad. In the kind of world we're living in, money is good because it can bring you the actual wealth. You can eat. Um, but I think it's for the best, at least for me, to when I do something, to put myself into what I'm doing, like how I'm doing right now. I'm recording this for the sake of recording it. I don't have a time limit to how long I should or shouldn't talk, what I should or shouldn't say. I just talk. I don't have any of this planned, and I don't want to even plan it. I can just keep on talking, and I will stop talking whenever I stop talking. Uh, and I really love this way of living because it just reminds me of, for example, mountain climbers. You see, they they can easily just book a helicopter and just go to the summit, put their flags, whatever they're identified with, and just take a few photos and leave. That's about it. Yet they intentionally and deliberately decide not to do that, not to take the shortcut and to just climb the mountain on foot and to go through all the challenges that may arise on the way to the summit. Because they know for a fact that what makes reaching the summit meaningful is the process of climbing it. They are living, well, not necessarily, but those who actually enjoy mountain climbing, they enjoy the process in itself, the journey in itself, rather than climbing and just waiting for the moment that they reach the summit. Because you see, when once you reach the summit, it's definitely good. It's I suppose it's gonna be fulfilling, exciting, you know. But what then? Are you just gonna stay on the summit? You're just gonna chill there for good? You're not gonna go anywhere else? You won't. You will stay there for a bit, and then you will get bored of staying on the summit. There's only so long that you can sit there before you decide to leave. And once you leave, you're gonna go looking for another mountain to climb. Because the point is not the destination, the point is the journey in itself. This is the point, the purpose of it. And this is what I like living like. Just just living. I am not trying to get anywhere. I am not trying to grasp what the entire cosmos is affecting me, how the entire cosmos is affecting me, every single object in it, because I realize that it's impossible. I'm not trying to reason and logically understand everything and try desperately to make sense out of life. I am living and I am loving it, and I have no idea what's gonna happen next. And luckily for me, I don't want even to know what's gonna happen next. Just the same way that when you're in the movies and friend of yours have seen that movie before and you're like, oh, spoilers. He could have saved you the effort of watching the 2 to 3 hours movie by just telling you what's gonna happen. Bam, let's go home. But that's not the point, is it? You want the journey itself. You don't care about finishing the movie. You just want to watch the goddamn movie. And so the same with the mountain climbers. Yeah, it would be nice to reach the summit, but what makes the summit meaningful is the process, the journey. So I would recommend, if you want, to live a value based life instead of a goal based one. But if you want that, then I shall bring your attention to the joke about this is that if you intended on living your life as a value based one, not a goal based one, that in itself is a goal. But it's a smaller goal, and it's achievable, quite easy, at least for some of us. And once it's actually done, it's the kind of goal that once you actually achieve, the kind of summit that once you actually reach, you won't desire reaching another summit. It will stay with you. And so once you actually learned, set up the goal, the dedication or the discipline to live by value instead of goals. Once you set that goal and you achieve it, then by default from there on, you will always be living by value. You won't have to chase the goal again and again and again. Uh, yeah. What does all of that mean? Well, it depends, again, who's listening. So for some, it will mean a lot, whatever kind of meaning exactly. It will differ, the meaning will differ between them, but it will mean a lot. For others, it won't mean anything at all. So, what does that mean? That it won't mean anything at all to some, and it would mean some something to some people. Ultimately, there is no such thing as meaning. You can ask this again by simplifying it and asking this question that I asked myself a couple of years ago. What is the meaning of a tree? The word itself, tree, means something because it's a pointer to the actual object, you could say. The, the tree. But the object in itself has no meaning. And so is your life and my life and life as a whole. It has no inherent meaning to it. It's like I like saying that meaning is like ketchup. You add it to the food that doesn't taste good enough on its own. And this is not the nihilistic, uh, depressive sense of meaninglessness. No, this is to find meaning in here, in this context, in the sense of beauty. To find beauty, meaning in the meaninglessness. That you can create the meaning. But at the same time, is whatever that is that you're doing is not ultimately and universally meaningful to anyone else. And that's okay.